Hello and welcome to Guitar Heresy, a channel where we're going to be exploring some of my experiences of playing, building, modifying short scale bass guitars primarily. Other bass guitars kind of come in there as well, though I do have long scale ones. And I've got an interest in developing some level of skill with six strings as well, so that may come in as well over time, and I've certainly modified a couple of those. I've mentioned the kind of building and modifying there. I guess that's the bit that's prompted me to think about setting up this channel. Over the last year, I've kind of shifted into building really more and more from first principles, some guitars and some bass guitars, and actually really looking to expand that and spend more time doing that. It's an interesting journey that's got me to here. I won't give you the full version. I might do a separate video about how I got here if anyone's interested in that. But 2 years ago, I couldn't play an instrument. I've always had an interest in and a passion for listening to music, but always thought I just wasn't musical. I guess I tried a couple of times learning to play bass guitar, and I'd never really got past the kind of a few days or a week at most of trying to put a bit of practice in daily. To start off with, you can only do relatively short periods of time, and actually that being able to do that regularly seems much more important than how long that chunk of time is. So 15 months ago, I found myself at a point where I was starting to have some time off of work on a long-term sickness, with what turned out, we finally got kind of that all checked and a diagnosis, to be chronic fatigue, which persists to this day. I can do a few, maybe half-hour chunks of time. If I push myself any more than that, it kind of sets me back further, so the next day I'll be kind of doing worse. So it's been really tricky. At the point where that started, and I was spending a lot of time lying on bed staring at the ceiling, having moved from a job that required some real creativity and passion and energy and made a difference to people's lives, there was a real gap there. And actually one of the things that I found to fill that with was music. Being in a situation where there's not a lot you can do, but you do have some periods that you can do a bit during the day, actually translated really well to those first faltering steps in learning to play an instrument. Me being me and liking creating in the practical sense as well, in the past, never with wood, it's always been mechanical stuff really, motorcycles primarily and custom motorcycles. So I shifted to playing and then started modifying guitars, initially just, changing things around a bit, replacing pickups, that sort of stuff, I guess, as most people have had, learning to maintain, and actually check out how well an instrument is working. The bass guitar I started learning on was a long scale one, and actually I found that shifting to short scale made that so much easier to learn. So actually that really switched me on to the short scale bass guitars, and that's been where the core of my interest has been. Where are we now? Well, having gone from a situation where I started modifying a few bits on a kitchen table, I actually kind of have led through to a point where we've really just finished setting up a proper workroom. I say we because actually this room my wife has used as a craft room for some time anyway, though we also had quite a lot of rubbish in here, which, over time we've cleared out. I put some workbenches in, we've spent some time, and it has taken quite a lot of time to actually have this set up in a way that allows me to pursue that interest, but also do that in a way that I just couldn't have before. All of my early projects, all of them up to this point where I'm making this video, were done just with hand tools. Now, I had a good selection of tools as far as mechanical stuff goes, but as I said, I was a real beginner to wood, so actually there's other things that I've picked up as we've gone along. But the bit that's happened over the last few months as we've set this workshop up is that it's allowed me to get some bench mounted tools as well. Right behind where the camera is, there's a pillar drill, and I've got to say I've wanted one of them for many years anyway, for mechanical stuff as well. You know, things like that allow you to do stuff with more precision, more control than actually anything you can do with a hand drill. The addition of some other bits there as well has really expanded it out so that it looks much more possible now for me to explore some of what I'd like to do in terms of putting together projects from first principles, starting with a few blocks of wood and actually sort of working from there. That's really exciting. I've still got a lot more thinking time than I do practical time, and actually I must have at least a dozen projects that I'd like to make. So yeah, I mean, actually following along some of that, if you're interested in modifying or building guitars, hopefully there's going to be bits in there that are interesting to you. The other bit though that I think might be of interest to some overlaps onto why I've called this Guitar Heresy in the first place. I've always kind of had a bit of an interest in why we do things in particular ways, and in exploring things that may not be as traditional, you know. I got the name for this actually probably a year ago when I was starting to watch things like YouTube videos around, you know, modifying guitars and that side of things. And I can't remember, it was either a video about piccolo basses or it was a video about using guitar pickups in basses. It was one of those two. That within the comment section, someone had commented, actually, you know, this is complete heresy, and that really tickled me because it kind of entertained me. In part because I get where that person's coming to. There is an established way of doing things, and actually, people that challenge that are going out on a limb a little bit. You know, there are reasons why the established stuff works. On the other hand, we're talking about creative arts here. It's always entertained me if you've got like an argument about, say, is a Les Paul better or worse than a Stratocaster? They're different. Great art has been produced on both. I think there's quite a lot of things out there where actually there's significant room to explore what works or doesn't work, alternative ways of doing things. So also, as I pursue this, I'm hoping that also I take the road less travelled a little bit as well, in a way that may be interesting to some. Now, if you're not interested in building guitars or short scale bass guitars or what have you, I'd imagine you've already switched off and you certainly won't be following this channel. But if that covers things that are of interest to you, I'm hoping that I'll create content that you might find interesting and useful in the months to come, months and years to come. So, where are we right now? Okay, workshop set up. I've just started working on a couple of projects. Broadly speaking, as far as making stuff, I've got two streams of that I want to do. One is actually making stuff from my own designs, you know, right from the beginning, which I mentioned. But the other one is I want to explore some of the classic body shapes. It's quite easy to either make or pick up a body blank for making something that's Stratocaster shaped or Telecaster shaped or Les Paul shaped. Just occurred to me right now in 2026 is probably not the safest of times to mention Fender based body shapes, but hey, everyone knows those shapes, you know. Creating basses, short scale basses primarily, in those body shapes. I want to do that with all three of those actually that I've just sort of reeled off there. I'm really interested to see how they work in terms of putting them together, the sounds they produce and how they differ from each other. The challenges, for instance, between that Fender where you've got the flat neck and the angled back neck that you've got with the Les Paul. There's a chunk of stuff there that actually will be really interesting to explore as well. Along the way, I think there's kind of some useful stuff to chat about that I've had experience of going through with regards, you know, kind of, whether you're talking guitar electronics, that subject of pickups and which ones we can use and what they sound like. There's a whole range of things really there that I think may have, you know, separate videos. The process of learning to play bass guitar as well, you know, and learning to play music more generally, I think may be useful, particularly for someone that came to it a bit later in life as I did, you know. So hopefully that may be of use or interest to some people. I will try and clearly tag some of these different streams of interest in the video so that actually people can pick out the bits that they find most useful. And obviously if that overlaps on your interests significantly, then it'd be lovely if you want to follow the channel. Talking about having a video channel seems well overblown at a point where I'm just recording the introductory video, and actually all it is kind of at this point is a blank space on YouTube where I'm going to put videos. But I hope this will grow into a point that by the time you watch this, actually there are things there of interest and that you're enjoying kind of following. So have a great day, everyone. See you soon.